AM 1220 KDOW and Money 2.0 present The Real Estate Report with Tony Mendes and Gordon Hines. Bay Area real estate and mortgage experts with over 25 years in the business. Now, with an in-depth look at this week's local and national real estate news and what it means for you. Your hosts, Tony Mendes and Gordon Hines.
Welcome into the Real Estate Report. I am Tony Mendes. Gordon's out today, which I think is funny. It's the first time we ran that intro. With that said, it's a call-in show, 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220. And yes, I am solo, so those phone calls can make this next hour pretty darn easy for me. 800-516-1220. Email the show, and we got a couple emails, tony@bayarealoansource.com. I'm coming to revert back to my whole talking about interest rates. 3.9%, according to Freddie Mac Weekly Survey, on a 30-year fix is pretty darn good. 1 year ago, it was at 3.66%, so we're not too far off. In the big picture, we're right next to where we were. Good credit, you can get the same about what you got last year. I priced a loan out not too long ago, 3.5%. Those are attainable. Of course, these are conforming rates. 15-year at 3.17 and the 5-year ARM at 3.14. These rates are all holding steady. Great for refinances. Affordability with purchases, even though that's one of the big concerns that we still see. The Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard, they just came out and said affordability is one of their main concerns. So low rates like this, and you hear low rates and you hear that affordability is still a concern. That doesn't really match up that well. It's definitely more of a concern with low rates and if rates go up. These low rates are great for cash out refinances. We know equity lines are rising. Refinance cash out loans, like what we call a total refinance, some of these are cheaper. In a lot of cases, they're cheaper than an equity line. So you have to decide on whether or not to get an equity line. And the reason why this has become a topic more often is as the Fed increases interest rates, those rates will affect things like credit cards, auto loans, and equity lines. Equity lines are tied towards prime, and prime is being affected by the interest rate hikes by the Fed. I'm highly advising people. I don't know if that's the right word. How about suggesting, this is a second opinion type of show, that people at least check out some sort of refinance. There's lots and lots of money being left on the table nationally. At least check out what a new refinance would look like. What kind of savings are out there? Can you pay off some debt? Even look at maybe trimming off a little bit of the equity. Now that equities have gone up considerably, and buying some more property in areas that are continually growing. We know the Bay Area in some parts have slowed down, and people are always looking for opportunities to max out their gains in real estate. This is one of those strategies. Get a low rate on your owner-occupied and buy a rental property, something we're going to talk about a little bit today. It's estimated that 25% of homeowners could refinance and save money. That's a lot of money. Again, this is a scenario type of show. We like the emails, tony@bayarealoansource.com. And kind of on cue here about refinances. Refinance activity is up based on data that Black and White Financial reported. They report that repayments of loans, it's up 23%. That's when you pay off a loan, whether you're paying it off completely or refinancing it. And it was pretty slow at the beginning of the year, and now it's really picked up with those low interest rates. They estimate that with these lower interest rates, an estimated 1.6 million or more homeowners can benefit from a refinance, estimating an average savings of $260 a month. Now, of course, that's going to differ, but that's the average. Other parts of the report foreclosure inventory is down 3% to a 10-year low, and delinquencies are down month over month. Those are some really good stats. It shows a really healthy market. What we can't really quantify yet is what would the market look like if there was more inventory, if there was more housing being built. We don't know that yet, because right now the housing that is being built, the majority of it's going towards high-end properties. It's not affordable. High-end condos, not affordable, and rental properties. A lot of the building that's going on, a majority of the growth that we've seen in new home construction is toward multifamily rentals. So if you don't think that they're praying, I don't want to use that word praying, focusing and trying to maximize their dollars and their rate of return on their investment, they're going after renters, because rents right now, you can go to almost anywhere in California and you're going to find high rents, and yet they're not focusing on affordable housing. There's just no initiatives for it. Some of the other stories out there, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, they have their own home price index. Their March numbers are showing no slowdown in appreciation month over month, and their year over year is showing a 6.8% increase from last March. This, of course, is just one of those indices that follow home prices nationally. All of them are up. I think this is a story of growth. We just talked about affordability, low rates. Are the rich just being able to buy houses? What's the inventory for low or affordable housing? You're following the trend of the builders and of the investors. Demand for housing is strong and healthy. It's also a story for buyers to hear, and it's not too late to get into an appreciating market, and home prices will keep rising based on the demand. It's a story that I was going back and looking at notes from last year. I kind of like looking at what I talked about last year, and one of them was I said some crazy statement like, get them while you can. And I was talking about low interest rates. And I could have easily said, get them while you can. It could have been about low home prices or home prices. And back then we thought home prices were going to slow down, and they haven't. 6.8% year over year. Bay Area, some parts of the East Bay are getting over double digits. I think these are pretty fantastic numbers to play with as a first-time home buyer, or even as somebody who's stepping up to another home, to look at the opportunities to, really get into a growing neighborhood. The East Bay is doing really, really well. It's a little bit more difficult to find those types of neighborhoods in the Peninsula, San Francisco, the San Jose's, but the East Bay and even farther out, they're really working for a lot of people, and the homes prices are cheaper. It's one of the reasons we're seeing this increase, and eventually everything's going to catch up. Some places will slow down, other places will rise, and we'll all catch up. But it's all about affordability and the convenience. That's the whole issue here, is the convenience. Not a lot of people want to continue driving farther and farther and farther in this traffic. It's getting worse on a daily basis. I can't stand it. I've made it a goal to travel during not off hours, and it's really getting harder and harder to find those off hours. So those sacrifices people are making by going out farther, yeah, okay, you can find a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in the 450, 500 range. Does that make sense for you? How much gas are you going to spend? How much time are you going to spend in a car? I always talk about this one person that I know who drives from Danville. Yeah, it's not really that affordable area, but Danville to Stanford every day. It's about 2.5 hours in the car every day. He has to carpool. He has to do the inconvenience of that. Yes, he's pretty smart because he's listened to thousands of books on CD. But is that a consolation for having to own a house? I don't know. I've never really made that a priority. I buy houses when I know that there's a value to them, whether it's a rental property or an owner-occupied property. Right now, we're looking at rentals in places where there's growth, and I've stopped saying I want to buy another primary residence, because the growth in some of these second-tier cities, even you look at the outskirts of Sacramento, for example, the Reno's going to boom at some point. It's going to be slower. It's going to be a slower boom. It's something that's going to catch your eye unless you're really paying attention. But it has already boomed, and it's going to continue. I think companies in the Bay Area and other large metropolitan areas are saying, we need to be able to have our employees afford a house. Look what Google's doing. They're trying to build this 300-unit affordable housing thing. That, they could easily just say, we're going to spend those millions of dollars and build a facility in a tax-friendly state like Nevada, and where a starting salary can buy a house. All of practically every home there is practically, I mean, there's a large percentage of homes are in the conforming limit, which means you can do almost 0% down on a lot of these, probably 3.5% down. Let me apologize, unless you're a VA. 3.5% down. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are embracing the first-time home buyers and low down payment programs, even with lower credit scores. So not investors, but companies are going to start figuring out that these second-tier cities are the place that people go, so that they're not just working remotely; they're working in satellite offices. This is a trend, and we're following that. So the sacrifices people are making to buy a house. Are you still sitting on the sidelines? Some of the topics that we continually hear from buyers, and when you finally get one, yes, you're going to be happy and you're going to be satisfied. It's always important, I think, to just run the numbers. Start with a good rent versus buy calculator, and then start playing with the numbers. Be conservative, and then move from there to start early and get pre-qualified, and then start looking and don't give up. There's a client that I contact, I think, every 6 months, and what are you doing? What's your update? We got pre-qualified about a year and a half ago. Oh, I'm still looking, inventory's tight. I said, what do you have you reached out to a couple? Well, I just stopped really contacting me. I mean, you got to reach out to some realtors and start working with them and have them sending you. Well, I don't know. It's not out. It doesn't sound like he's ready to buy a house. But if you are looking to buy a house and you make that commitment, there are going to be the opportunities out there working with some good realtors. We have some fantastic referrals if you're interested. Don't forget to call the show 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220. Our Facebook is the Real Estate Report Radio Show, the Real Estate Report Radio Show. Some of the new stats that I found out doing some research recently, it's basically the profile of the average homeowner, doing a refinance or a purchase, basically anybody doing a finance on a property. There's some research on how they measure the 6 attributes, and they compare to a baseline over a period of time. And they're stating that currently we're at 2003 levels. And I'm kind of going to reference this to where we are compared to the post or the pre-crisis that we had and where we are today. 2003 levels were pretty darn good. We had another 2 or 3, maybe 4-year run, depending on who you ask. And they're saying that this risk that people are taking right now is normal. It's right on the baseline. That they're saying that the debt ratios are averaging right around 36%, and those over 43%, which is the qualified mortgage max, that's going up a little bit. That's the only thing they're really concerned about. But it's sitting at 24% compared to 18%, so it's not back in 2001. So it's not up that much further as far as the risk people are taking over the qualified mortgage maximum debt ratio of 43%. They're talking about loan to value and how that's improved, meaning that's your equity or your down payment. That's improved to about 2% to 85.9%. You'd be surprised. 85.9% is the national average of an LTV. Around here, that might sound a little crazy, but you have to remember, a lot of people are buying. 25% of the homes in the Bay Area have been purchased in the last several years. But yeah, the average down payment in the United States is about 12%. So if we're back to 2003 crisis levels or pre-crisis levels, we have room to grow. And it lends to a whole housing a market where, and I'm going to talk about something that I've talked about quite often, and that's how healthy the Bay Area market is and how healthy, because of the general nature of how lending practices are being enforced right now, and that's qualified mortgages. That means that anybody who's bought a house, anybody who's refinanced a house in the last several years has gone through some of the tightest guidelines, and that lends to a really strong ownership pool, meaning that we're not going to see your neighbor go into foreclosure and then the neighbor's neighbor go into foreclosure and so on, and that becomes that snowball effect. And that's what happened in 2006, or really 2007, 8, and 9, and so on, leading up to the recovery starting in 2011, 12. And when you have this kind of strong ownership pool, you're going to have, number one, lower rates as well. You're going to have people staying in their house a lot longer. The national average at one point was about 7 years sitting in their house. That's gone up significantly, well over 12 years, 13 years, depending on who you ask. And I think that's going to continue to rise. Home improvement is increasing. That's also another sign that people are staying in their houses a little bit longer. Some people might feel locked into their house. We're working with a client right now. He cannot sell his house and rebuy a bigger house, even at his high income, because of the home prices. So he's locked into his house, and he's going to go straight to home improvement. And there's a lot of home improvement finance ways that or lending programs that we use, but the home improvement market in general is picking up, another sign of a healthy market. We'll come back after this break. You're welcome to join in the conversation. Call the show 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220, or email the show, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com. We'll come right back.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendes. Gordon is out today. I am solo. You're welcome to call the show and be my co-hosts. 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220. So I think the theme that we started off in the first segment was the housing market's pretty strong. There's low inventory. There's a little bit of affordability issue that's kind of lingering out there. Yet home prices still keep going up. People sitting on the sidelines are like, should we buy? A lot of people have given up. Obviously in our business, we run a lot of pre-quals and pre-approvals, and some of them fall off, and it's slightly disappointing, especially when you hear the reasons that they just can't find inventory, or home prices went up too fast. That they couldn't keep building their down payment, and then they're back renting, or they're complacent at renting. I'm not sure exactly if that describes it the right way, but it's happening. And then there's people who are saying, you know what, we're going to buy no matter what. We're going to make the sacrifice and bite the bullet. We're going to qualify. And those are the people who I think are really going to benefit over the next several years. Are the people who are finding the ways to do it. We've run across a lot of people who are self-employed, or they find a way and they get creative with their taxes, or they start a business and they work a couple years, or they make some sacrifices and they save some money. They cut out the cafe latte, or they cut out the beer or the pizza or the dinners, and they start saving some money, or they work on their debt or their credit. It could be a number of things, or all of them, who knows, but they're making these sacrifices, and they're getting into a house. A lot of people are co-signing. Yet that's a whole another topic that we should get into another time. Co-signing can be dangerous, but it can also help you get into a house. Working with a client right now who their parents helped them co-sign 3 years ago. Now they're making a little bit more money. They did their taxes correctly this time, and they own like 6 rental properties, and they did it all kind of messed up where they didn't show enough income. And now they are able to qualify and remove their parents off the loan, and free them up from the debt, and they can go off and do whatever they want. And I think they like cruises, if I remember correctly. But the sacrifices that people are making to get in the house, I think those are the people who are really going to benefit, especially here in the Bay Area, where inventory is tight. They put their best foot forward on their offer, and they get that house, and they're working with a good realtor. I think is also a very important key here. Working with a professional in the business. I know Gordon talks about it all the time. I want to emphasize that the importance of a realtor that understands the market, understands that there are at a broker tour / open house, there's going to be hundreds of people interested in this, whether you see them or not. There's people online. There's people. The broker tour has already happened before this house goes on the market. That realtor, maybe represented their whole office, and maybe that whole office has five buyers for that property each. There's hundreds of people that are going to be interested in that property, and then there's foreign investors as well. That's what's happening. So you got to get your best foot forward. You got to work with a realtor who understands that this is happening in the market. And then you also have to work with a good loan agent that understands it as well and give you good pre-approval, can communicate with the agents on both sides and get that pre-approval pushed through, and so you can get your offer accepted. It sounds simple, but you have to start with a good realtor, and I can't stress that enough. In fact, we have a good realtor that's coming on the second half, guest Tony Bruno. So kind of going back to the theme of the housing market being very strong. I don't want to say hot, a realtor would. I just don't see enough volume for it to be hot, because I think that only represents the sellers. I think the buyers want it to be, I don't want to say cold, but I think we want to see more inventory. And then we can say hot was 2010 through 2014. Right now it's normalizing. In fact, the Joint Center of Housing Studies, they say that housing is normal right now. Prices and sales are on the rise. Distressed properties are declining. Construction is rising. Remodeling is stronger than ever, and expected to continue through the next decade. The remodeling industry, it contributes so much to the economy. It's huge. It's estimated that 3 jobs are created from each house in a normal market. The report also says that home automation and energy efficiency is growing, especially among first-time home buyers. Home improvement is definitely an area that I would look at as a indicator of the housing market. It'd also be some place that I would, or an industry I would look at if I was looking to start a job or change jobs. The home improvement business is going crazy. I have a friend in Salt Lake City. He says his company has doubled in size in the last 3 years. Doubled in size just because of the amount of solid owners right now that are looking to improve their properties. He is so busy, he's probably going to triple. I guess double, triple, so that's more than double. So if you're young and you're looking out at starting a job, I think that I would look at the housing market. Some of the concerns that the housing studies have: inventory still low, pushing up rents and prices. It leads to affordability issues. They estimate that 9 million homeowners in the U.S. pay more than half of their income towards housing. Housing gains are not uniform. This is another one. Some of the areas where they're not even close to their peaks, while others are well over. Affordability is another issue, kind of a side affordability. It's estimated that 45% of renters only, they state, of renters in metro areas can afford to buy a median home price in their area. Low vacancy rates are hitting 30-year lows, pushing up rents. It's outpacing inflation in most markets. There's also a mismatch with rental shock not keeping up pace with demand at the low end. Chris Herbert at the Center's managing director said while the recovery in home prices reflects a welcome pickup in demand, it's also been driven by very tight supply, and any excess in the housing that may have been built up is being absorbed, and stronger supply response is going to be needed to keep pace with demand, particularly for moderately priced homes, let's say affordable homes. We'll come back after this break. Hopefully our guest, Tony Bruno, will be with us. He's a really busy man. You can always call the show 800-516-1220. We'll be right back. This is the Real Estate Report with Tony Mendes.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendes. Gordon Hines is out today. We're going to put Tony Bruno on hold just for a second while we take a caller. Justin in Newark. How are you today?
Hello. I'm doing great. So, Tony, my question is, about 2 years ago, we purchased a duplex in Newark, and we rented it out to Section 8 tenants, and we had great cash flow, but we ran into some issues, so we sold the property. But I'm just wondering, since it was a good cash flow, do you think it's a good idea to get back into into the duplex market?
Do you make any money?
Do you think? Yeah. It was making money. It was cash flowing about $2,000 a month.
Do you have any tenant issues?
We did have one tenant issue, which caused us to. It sort of scared us, so we sold the property, and it was picked up really quickly by someone else recently. But we were wondering whether you see maybe rents or property values still going up, because we're looking to get back in because it was. It's still going. Newark still has a lot of cash flow opportunities, but we're just not sure about the clientele.
Justin, thank you for the call. I'm going to answer your question off the air, or you'll be off the air. Hopefully, I won't. Right, producer? Going Section 8 would not be my first choice. The reason I asked Justin if he made money is maybe this is his opportunity to get into a better kind of rental situation. Now, what I think Justin might run across is that he may not be able to find the affordable property, something that with his down payment that will cash flow like a Section 8 property. So so what it may do is push Justin out of the area. Yet we are seeing people all across the Bay and the outskirts of the Bay actually profiting pretty well on cash flows, even on single-family properties. And it may give you a little bit more stable type of tenant. You won't have to be under the restrictions of Section 8 tenancy laws, which I think is incredibly important. So I don't know. Tony Bruno's with us today. Do you have any comments on that?
The rental market, I think, is going to be strong for quite some time to come. I mean, look at what's going on in our area as far as business growth. Google's building a new campus. Facebook keeps expanding. And not all these employees can buy houses right away. So we're going to see a strong rental push the next few years. That's my opinion. Matter of fact, I'm working with someone right now who's just buying investment properties. He's not even caring if they cash flow. He's looking for long-term growth, 20 to 30-year hold. So he is buying, even if he has a $2,000 a month negative, he's okay to absorb that. He's thinking long-term. It takes great reserves, great income to handle something like that. But I agree with him. Buying any kind of real estate, long-term hold, you're going to do great on.
Yeah, I agree with the rents going up. I think if Justin made a little bit of money and he has a little bit more experience with the rental market and owning a rental, I think he might want to be a little bit more picky and maybe step up a little bit. That's my opinion, because I wish Gordon was here, because Gordon is a little bit more experienced with that as an investor side. But yeah, Justin, give us an email, and maybe we'll give you some more input on that when Gordon returns tomorrow. You can email me, Tony at BayAreaLoanSource.com, Tony at BayAreaLoanSource.com. Tony, I'm sorry that segment went so short. You're going to be able to stick around for the next one?
Absolutely, yep.
Fantastic. So we have Tony Bruno online from Coldwell Banker. He's been in business for 25 years. We're going to get right into the real estate kind of Bay Area synopsis and what's going on with Tony Bruno when we come back after this break. You're listening to Tony Mendes on the Real Estate Report here on AM 1220 KDOW. We'll come right back.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendes. You can always call the show 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220. Joining us right now is Tony Bruno from Coldwell Banker. He works out of Fremont, but he does the whole East Bay. And I think you've even started working in Pleasanton. You've been in the business for many, many years, 20 plus. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
So we just had a caller looking to get back in investment properties talking about rents. Rents are going up. I think it's the driving incentive for many, many people who live in the Bay Area to buy a house. How often are you running across somebody who's just saying, my landlord just raised my rent $500. My landlord just raised my rent $600. They're giving me 6 months to get out of the house. Are you seeing rents just pushing people as the biggest incentive to buy? First-time home buyers?
I'm working with a tenant right now. The only reason they're moving, they've been in the house for 12 years, and their landlord called them and says, we're thinking about selling. And these people, they're a little older, mid-60s, and they're buying their first house just because they don't want to be moving any further into life and having to move in their 70s and their 80s. So first-time buyers, 63, 64 years old, they want to have stability the rest of their lives, so they want to buy their first home. I think they might be my oldest first-time buyers ever. Really a sweet couple, but challenging marketplace for them right now. Just super challenging.
But the rents are certainly something that you hear about a lot, right?
Rents are increasing. Demand is really, really high for good rental properties.
So it's not just single-family owner-occupied properties. People are looking for anything that they can get their hands on to rent. You were just telling me some crazy stat that in Fremont and the outlying areas, there's zero homes, zero 3-bedroom, 2 baths for under $600,000. Is that correct?
Actually, for a buyer we're working with, I just thought I'd do a quick research, see what I could find out in Fremont under 630. Right now, there are 0 3-bedroom properties of any type, condo, townhouses, not a single one on the market today. There's only 134 total properties for sale at any price point right now.
Wow. And that's condo, townhouse, and single family,
Everything,
right?
Everything, correct.
That's incredible. Wasn't this supposed to be the summer of inventory? Didn't we talk about this somewhere in January? What we thought we just haven't seen it?
We just have not seen it.
Where are the sellers? What are the sellers thinking? Are they just going to hold out as long as they can, or are they just have no other options but to stay in their house? What is the general feeling?
There's a lot of folks that would like to, only if they could transfer their tax bill to their next home. So if they stay within Alameda County, they can do that. And other than that, there's only like 7 or 8 other counties that participate in that. And I think that keeps people in their homes, because let's say they wanted to go to, Tracy or Modesto, you can't transfer your tax base there. I think Placer County, San Diego, Santa Clara, San Mateo, there's a few others that you can, but again, they want to buy down significantly and put some cash in the bank, and it's really hard to find a county that accepts that property tax transfer.
Yeah, I can see that as I call that kind of getting locked into your property. We run into that all the time. It's one of the reasons why I believe here in the Bay Area, especially, we're seeing home improvement as a boom. Home improvement is a boom right now. Where's the silver lining, though, for a first-time home buyer or any buyer for that matter?
this market can't last forever, but everyone says, are we going to see another crash? And I don't believe we are. I do believe that at some point in time, it cannot continue like this because the percentage of people that can buy is going to be so limited that the market's going to have to correct again. Again, not like 2007 to 2010, but I do think we're going to see some sort of a correction in the next couple of years. And again, our market's so resilient. Even if it drops 5 or 10%, 5 years from now, it's going to be up 20%. So it doesn't really matter. Buy it long term. That's always been my philosophy. And actually, buy it for the right reasons, to live in it, to raise your family in, not necessarily to make a profit. If you can afford the payment today, it's all good.
Definitely on my end, because it's not all good if you can't afford the payments because you won't get the loan.
Right. No, if they don't qualify for financing, they can't buy it anyway. But if they're for the financing, even if the market drops a little bit and their values are a little bit underwater, it's going to come back. Always does.
I found some crazy stat that it was like it's like 35 or 40% of owners today are paying more than 50% of their wages towards their house. If that's actually the case, they didn't qualify for it originally. So something happened. Their income dropped, or somehow they're tying more debt to the property. I'm not actually sure how they're doing it. Maybe they lost an income. But that's a large number, and it's definitely worth paying attention to, because especially here in the Bay Area, because at some point, and I don't want to say it's going to break, but the numbers just don't lie. Fewer and fewer people are able to afford houses in the Bay Area. We're just lucky that there's not a lot of inventory. So I honestly think that a combination of interest rates going up and more inventory hitting the market can result in that small correction that we need for, because who knows? I don't think it's going to snowball. I 100% agree with you, Tony, because of the nature of the type of buyers that we have and the quality of the owners that we have. But with 1 minute left, Tony, tell us what would happen if interest rates went up and we started seeing more inventory.
We would definitely see softening in prices. But then again, that might even restrict the market even further, because if sellers say, well, I can't get what I wanted last year, why am I going to sell it now? I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a real tough one. So my advice is keep the rates down, my friend. Work on it.
I wish I had more control over that. We're not going to get into that. Tony Bruno, thank you very much for being with us. You can always reach Tony Bruno at tonybruno.com. Pretty darn simple, tonybruno.com. You can always email me if you have any questions for us or Tony or any of our guests, Tony at bayarealoansource.com. Thank you very much for being with us today, Tony.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we'll come back after this break here on AM 1220 KDOW. This is Tony Mendes and the Real Estate Report.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I am Tony Mendes. Gordon Hines is out today. As the consummate investor he's visiting one of his properties in Albuquerque, I think. With that said, silver linings. Tony Bruno was just with us, and I kind of asked him, well, what are the silver linings out there for buyers as we continually talk about affordability, high home prices, low inventory? Sellers what are they doing? Are they going to sell? When are they going to sell? What's going to happen when they start selling, when the inventory hits? I think the silver linings is there's really low interest rates, and owning a home is extremely gratifying. I've owned several homes, and I think it's one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done. I love working in the house. I love changing the house. I love the money that comes in from the rental properties. I have a plan where each rental property that I own is going to pay for something in my retirement when it's paid off. It could be long-term care. It could be vacations. It could be my child's college. It could be a new car. It could be anything like that. And with the right amount of time that you have, and I want to say, I have this formula that I'm working on where now I don't know, obviously don't know how long you're going to live, but there's this formula, or when you're going to retire, that after a certain age, it doesn't really make sense to buy real estate for the to get it paid off and then have that kind of return later. It makes more sense if you had extra money to get a really good cash flow, but not for that 30-year payoff. So I think I'm beyond that. So if I was to buy another rental property, I'd buy a property that was purely good cash flow with good rate of return to supplement what I already have. Call the show, 800-516-1220. Get your calls on the air. You can always email the show, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com. This is Jim's email from Alameda County. Jim wants to know if he would still qualify for a home loan after taking 6 months off of work. He's been back to work for 2 months, and this is kind of tricky. The short answer is yes, but we have to determine whether or not he is W-2 or self-employed. And that can make a big difference because going from W-2 to self-employed, you need 2 years of self-employed. But if going from self-employed to W-2, you can do it right away. I don't know if you heard me snap, but you should be in the same line of work. That's something that is important. We see a lot of people who were with a company. They got hired as a contractor maybe for 6 months or a year, and then they became full-time. That's something that we need to, that's something that we see all the time. The second thing is Jim salaried? This can determine how long he needs to be back at his new job. If he's salaried, usually lenders use one paycheck. But if he's hourly, he can be about 3 months sometimes. And again, the third one is being in the same profession. That can be one of the hardest things to overcome with a lender. You can always just put down manager. Some people get along with that, but lenders are verifying previous employers as well, so you have to be really careful about that. We had another email from Stephanie, but I don't think we have time to go over this. She wanted to buy a rental property, and she wanted to know why it's easier to buy a rental property than your personal owner-occupied property. We've talked about this before. I welcome, shoot me another email. I'll respond to your email on that. With that said, that's our show for the day. You're always welcome to email me, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com. Thank you very much for the emails. It's my way of keeping in touch with what you guys are doing out there, and the phone calls, certainly. And thanks, Justin, for calling the show earlier. You're also welcome to shoot us an email, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com. I think there's some seminars coming up that Rob Black does that I'm part of. You can always go to robblack.com and check that out. I think they're coming up early in July, so you want to get on that early. I think their code is Radio25 if you want to get the discount entry. With that said, you can always visit our website, BayAreaLoanSource.com, BayAreaLoanSource.com, and enjoy the rest of your day and try to get cool. We'll come back next week.